one, President Trump said yes to President Lee's request for American support in building nuclear-powered submarines for the ROK Navy. And number two, wartime OPCON transfer to the ROK within the next couple of years. Enlighten the audience on these two aspects.
First on Korea, I see General Brunson is here, our commander, who does a phenomenal job there, ensuring that partnership is realized and deepened every single day. And I think it really does exemplify.
최근 아시아 최고 권위의 안보회의에서 미국 국방장관이 세계의 수많은 동맹국 중 오직 우리 한국만을 콕 집어 극찬을 쏟아내 화제가 되고 있습니다. 미국의 자존심 강한 최고위군 지휘관들조차 안보에 무임승차하지 않고 스스로 강력한 자주국방을 실천하는 우리 대한민국의 결단에 아낌없는 경의를 표한 건데요. 나아가 한국이 요청한 원자력 추진 잠수함 기술 지원과 전시작전 통제권 전환 요구에 대해서도 파격적인 지지를 보내며 세계의 이목을 집중시켰습니다. 과연 샹그릴라 회의장 한편에서 어떤 놀라운 선언들이 오갔는지 함께 보시죠.
Now, when I was in the United States Army as a young lieutenant, the motto of my first rifle platoon was those who long for peace must prepare for war. It's a simple truth that makes as much sense tactically as it does strategically. But today I want to lay out what this return to realism means for the most consequential region in the world, the Pacific. And as the 2026 U.S. National Defense Strategy makes clear, we are charting a new course for our alliances and partnerships, one that is grounded in the realities of power and interests. It is a course that will leave America stronger, our allies and partners more capable, and the Pacific region more stable and secure. The foundation of this new approach is moving away from a model of dependency and toward one of true partnership, embracing a perspective that our partners in Asia have understood for decades. Now, perhaps because of distance or perhaps because of the hard-learned lessons of history, the default Asian lens on America has been clearer and far more pragmatic than in other regions. Our partners in Asia have long understood that the bedrock of a durable partnership is not based on idealistic values, but on the concrete alignment of national interests. There is undeniable strength in this clarity, and it's what makes our Pacific allies and partners such reliable counterweights in the face of regional threats. When our interests align, we act together with focused resolve. When our interests diverge, we adjust pragmatically, without the drama or the moralizing. I think Western Europe might take note. This is a mindset we fully embrace. The era of the United States subsidizing the defense of wealthy nations is over. We need partners, not protectorates. We seek alliances built on shared responsibility, not dependence.
미국이 혼자서 모든 짐을 짊어지던 시대는 완전히 끝났고 이제는 스스로를 지킬 힘이 있는 진짜 동맹과만 함께하겠다는 단호한 선언인데요. 말보다 실력으로 보여주는 우리 대한민국의 가치가 더욱 돋보일 수밖에 없는 이유죠.
And while a decent peace is our goal, make no mistake, America is a Pacific nation, and we insist that China respect our long-standing position in the region, and not just insist, but maintain the manifest military strength to underwrite it. Now, to get that job done, we are changing the playbook. The era of performative outrage is over, where Washington issues loud diplomatic protests that signal virtue but do not project capabilities. Going forward, we will be intentional about how and when we communicate. And we will lead first and foremost with actions. As I said, strong but quiet. Big stick, speak softly. We will prioritize lethal capabilities, strategic discipline, and business-like cooperation over empty rhetoric and peacocking. Any potential opponent will be forced to judge us by our hard power, collective readiness, and steadfast resolve. As the national security strategy and the national defense strategy direct, our approach in the Pacific centers on deterrence by denial along the first island chain. Now, we are reestablishing the Monroe Doctrine, the Donroe Doctrine, as I like to call it, in the Western Hemisphere, aggressively defending our homeland and our hemisphere. We will protect our people. But if you look at our department's planning guidance and our budget, we're building a team capable of projecting power, a country capable of projecting power anywhere in the world, most especially here. We will build and sustain a strong denial defense in the Western Pacific that ensures aggression is infeasible, escalation unattractive, and war deemed irrational. Our military posture will be resilient, distributed, and optimized to deny quick, decisive gains through military force. This is the logic of strategy. And it's the essence of peace through strength, and the foundation of a durable peace in the Pacific that benefits all of us. We all benefit from such a policy because our quiet but clear strength will lead to stability and peace.
말만 앞서는 경고나 빈말 대신 압도적인 힘으로 상대를 확실히 누르겠다는 의지인데요. 이름만 걸어둔 동맹이 아니라 진짜 군사력을 보여주는 나라를 가장 먼저 챙겨주겠다는 현실적인 태도이기도 합니다.
But this is not a burden America can or should carry alone. A favorable balance of power requires capable allies with real military strength, real industrial capacity, and real political resolve. For too long, the security of this region has rested disproportionately on American military power, while many of our allies and partners allowed their own defense capabilities to atrophy. That's a bad deal for the American taxpayer, and it's an unsustainable crutch for our allies and partners. Instead, we are all best off when, based on our comparative advantages, we all contribute to the shared goal of peace and stability. This is not a my way or the highway approach. We are ready to work with all of you, where you are, based on your own situation, your own geography, and your own cultural, political, and economic realities, to ensure that a Pacific free of any dominant hegemon is secured. And that's why a core line of effort in our national defense strategy is to increase burden sharing with U.S. allies and partners and simultaneously empower them to contribute to our collective defense. This is no longer an afterthought. It's an essential ingredient of our strategy.
미국의 일방적인 도움에 기대어 편히 쉬던 시절은 끝났으니 스스로를 지킬 실력이 있는지 직접 증명하라는 건데요. 든든한 미국 뒤에 숨어서 안보를 소홀히 하던 동맹국들에게 던지는 따끔한 일침인 셈이죠.
Alliances only work when they are true partnerships. It is a two-way street. You don't have a strong alliance unless everyone has skin in the game. No freeloading. History is not over. Alliances are not judged by the number of flags, but by the number of formations. We don't need more conferences, we need more combat power. I'm sorry to say this here. Less Shangri-La, more ships, more subs. For too long, polite pleas from our European allies to spend more on their own defense fell on deaf ears. They're finally playing catch-up, and we let ourselves get distracted by empty globalist rhetoric about the rules-based international order, while European capitals threw open their borders and hollowed out their militaries. You can have all the rules you want, and rules are great, but if you can't back them up with hard power, the rules are not worth the paper they are written on. Europe and NATO have some big decisions to make, and more on that soon. These same principles apply in the Pacific, albeit, of course, in different circumstances. In this region, I'm optimistic that our allies, driven by our shared national interests and the unprecedented threat environment, will step up and step up for real. In fact, we're already seeing progress. If you want to see what burden sharing looks like, consider the Republic of Korea. South Korea has invested consistently in its own defense, not because it does not have the luxury of treating war like an academic exercise. They live on the front lines, and so they build real combat power. President Lee's decision to increase defense spending to the new global standard of 3.5% and to assume greater responsibility for its conventional defense reflects simply a clear-eyed understanding of the threat environment. It won't be easy, but it's necessary for the security and prosperity of his country. This was a hard-nosed decision because they see the world as it actually is. We applaud the pragmatism and leadership demonstrated by Seoul. The region will be far more stable and more secure when other allies and partners follow.
유럽의 동맹국들이 종이에 적힌 규칙 뒤에 숨어 국방을 소홀히 할 때 가장 위험한 최전선에서 스스로의 안보를 위해 뼈를 깎는 재정적 부담마저 감내하며 나라를 지켜낸 우리 대한민국의 책임감에 아낌없는 찬사를 보낸 겁니다. 남이 지켜주기만을 바라지 않고 스스로 막중한 부담을 짊어지며 힘을 키웠으니 미국 입장에서도 그 무거운 결단에 감탄하며 박수를 보낼 수밖에요.
President Trump is setting the gold standard. We demand 3.5% from our allies and partners, and we are going well beyond that number. We expect every single ally and partner to match that kind of resolve. For those nations that rise to this challenge, that embrace responsibility as true partners, the benefits will be clear. As our strategy states, we will prioritize working with model allies, those nations who are most capable, clear-eyed, and ready to defend their national interests. For those nations, we are moving them to the front of the line. Expedited arms sales, deep industrial base collaboration, expanded intelligence sharing, the list goes on, the benefits many. But for those who believe they can continue to free ride on the generosity of the American taxpayer, hear us now. Those days are over. Allies who refuse to step up and carry their own weight for our collective defense will face a clear shift in how we do business. President Trump believes in helping countries that help themselves. And the United States Department of War feels the exact same way. That is the nature of burden sharing. It's what we owe each other, and most importantly, what I owe the American people and my troops. The most precious asset we have. The world today is unforgiving. And that's why this bold path is a matter of strategic necessity. We have a responsibility to our people to shape the world that comes next. And under President Trump's leadership, that is exactly what the United States of America is doing. The U.S. War Department is advancing an America first, peace through strength, common sense agenda. We are reviving our warrior ethos inside our ranks. We are rebuilding our great military, and we are reestablishing the deterrence that was so dangerously allowed to erode under the Biden administration. Under President Trump, we have the most powerful and capable military in the history of the world.
스스로를 지키겠다는 의지가 단단한 우방국에게 가장 먼저 최고의 혜택을 몰아주겠다는 파격적인 약속인데요. 첨단 무기 수출의 초고속 처리부터 핵심 방산 기술 공유까지 그 최우선 수혜국이 바로 실력을 증명해낸 우리 대한민국이 될 거라는 확실한 이정표입니다.
But our approach is not one of isolation. America first does not mean America alone, but it means realist engagement with a clear eye toward defending our most vital national interest. It's an approach that values actions over words and sees alliances as true partnerships, measured by the sovereign strength and capabilities brought to bear by each member. Practical, interest-driven models of partnership is not a cynical compromise, but instead the most realistic and reliable foundation for enduring peace in the Pacific. Our approach asks Pacific nations to do what many are already eager to do: invest seriously in their own defense, contribute more to collective security, and work with the United States in pragmatic ways that advance our shared interests. If there was a thesis statement for my remarks this morning, it would be this: join us in embracing this vision, in building a team of strong, self-reliant nations fully capable of defending their own sovereignty while contributing to our collective security, in preserving the favorable balance of power that benefits all of us. Strong, quiet,
미국의 일방적으로 기대는 관계를 벗어나 스스로의 주권을 지킬 진짜 실력을 갖추고 함께 힘을 모으자는 건데요. 진정으로 강한 나라들끼리 손을 잡아야만 서로에게 도움이 되는 진짜 친구가 될 수 있다는 현실적인 평가입니다.
The list is extremely long already, so I'll pull out a few. And first in this round, please, from Korea, Dr. Chung-min Lee. Chung-min.
Thank you, Bastian. Mr. Secretary, thank you for your positive remarks on the ROK-US alliance. South Korea's defense spending this year increased 8.2%, and we are fully committed to every single matrix you mentioned on a self-reliant defense posture. In this regard, my question to you, sir, is twofold. Number one, President Trump said yes to President Lee's request for American support in building nuclear-powered submarines for the ROK Navy for larger deterrence missions. And number two, wartime OPCON transfer to the ROK within the next couple of years. Could you please enlighten the audience on these two aspects of the strong and stronger U.S. ROK alliance? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
First on Korea, I see General Brunson is here, our commander, who does a phenomenal job there, ensuring that partnership is realized and deepened every single day. And I think it really does exemplify the kind of partnership, and that's why I led with the remarks about what South Korea's done. I was there when the president talked about nuclear power submarines. I think it's an important capability. I think we're looking for allies willing to expand subsea capabilities that produce real dilemmas. And I think that's what we recognize is that our undersea warfare capabilities is unmatched, substantially unmatched, and creates a lot of strategic dilemmas for potential adversaries wondering where we are and what our capabilities may be. Allies and partners seeking similar capabilities in their own defense and in regional stability makes a lot of sense to us. So I think when you're working with and talking to President Trump, someone who's willing to think outside the box and shake up sort of a stale view of what may or may not be possible, expand the Overton window, asks like that are important, and I think you'll see an acceleration in our willingness to come alongside countries that want to run quickly. Now, there's challenges, and how we get past them will require collaboration, but we're very much committed to that. And then as far as wartime OPCON transfer, the general and I have spent a good chunk of time recently talking about that. We met recently in the Pentagon with your Minister of Defense on that very topic. And frankly, it's a breath of fresh air for an ally to want to take more control more quickly. And that is an instinct we want to continue to incentivize. And I think we have to find the balance of where our military O-plans and the responsibilities that U.S. uniformed members have had for decades now is honored as we phase over to wartime OPCON transfer for the Republic of Korea, which we welcome the fact that they want that. And I think it provides even more optionality for both the Koreans and the United States there in the peninsula going forward, which is a very good thing. So I appreciate that question.
우리가 전쟁 때 군대를 직접 지휘할 전시작전권을 가져오고 오랜 수건이었던 원자력 추진 잠수함 기술까지 요청하자 미국 지휘부가 흔쾌히 긍정적으로 호응한 건데요. 미국조차 기존의 한계를 깨고 적극적으로 돕겠다고 공언할 만큼 엄청난 안보적 실익을 거둔 셈입니다. 하지만 이렇게 강력해지는 우리 군사력을 지켜보는 중국의 마음은 무척이나 불편했던 모양인데요. 결국 잔뜩 굳은 표정의 중국 대표가 마이크를 잡고 따져 묻기 시작합니다.
Dong-Won, your microphone's on.
Thank you for your speech, Secretary Hexas. Most recently, U.S. Forces Korea Commander General Xavier Brunson made a striking remark in a public interview, stating that South Korea is, quote-unquote, a dagger in the heart of Asia aimed at China. This comment stands in a stark contradiction to the spirit of a constructive China-U.S. relationship of strategic stability, which our two presidents agreed to build during President Trump's most recent visit to China, which you also just referred to in your speech. President Trump, in particular, has also repeatedly emphasized his desire to forge the best possible relationship with China. My question is simple. Does General Brunson's statement represent the official position of the Trump administration? And is characterization of South Korea's role as a dagger aimed at China authorized or endorsed by the Pentagon? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
우리의 강력한 군사력이 중국의 바로 앞마당을 겨냥한 단검이냐며 따지듯 묻는 중국 대표의 발언인데요. 회의장의 팽팽한 긴장감이 감도는 순간 그 자리에 와 있던 주한 미국군 사령관이 직접 대답하겠다며 마이크를 잡았습니다.
There, so just to clarify. Since the good general was name-checked, I don't know if he wants to say anything. I would always give the floor to an esteemed American general, General Brunson, on South Korea, and then I'll take it from there if you want. I don't know if we could turn his mic on or not.
Can we turn on General Brunson's mic, please? Can you press the button on the... I think if we can get some support here, please. We need to insert the badge, probably. Okay, yeah, there we go. General.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for that. Gentlemen, if you could please raise your hand, the gentleman who asked the question, that I might look at you directly. What I said was trying to describe the operating environment, because what's incredibly important in being strong and quiet is about being able to describe the environment wherein we're working. If you remember, the Prussian philosopher, military philosopher Clemens talked about Korea being a dagger pointed at Japan. The difference is we have to change our perspective, which is why the East Up map is important. By changing our perspective, we take into account how others might see us in the region. We've got to be strong. We've got to have the right capabilities within the Republic of Korea, but we have to understand that those things still exist, and you have to combat those things every day. What I was trying to do in a place of learning was talk to War College students about how we have to change our perspective and think about where we are. Then I can advise not only my service secretary, but then my secretary, my boss in the Department of War, on what things we might do. The secretary also mentioned OPCON transfer. The position that we have within the peninsula, based on our great allies represented by Minister of Defense Hong Bak, who's right here in the front row, is important. But what's also important is that we have the right capabilities at the right place in the right time, but also take into account our perspectives. I'm encouraged by the fact that my president and my secretary went to China. That is tremendous, and that we might have increased relationships where we might talk. And we have to remember that when we're talking to students, we want them to understand and appreciate other perspectives other than our own. So many times over the course of my career and the secretary's career, we've thought blue and red. Well, now there's a green there where we might have in this green space the opportunity to talk and to have military thought. The only way there will be philosophers in the future wearing uniforms like myself will be that we enter into the field of ideas. And we challenge ideas. And I'm okay with the challenge of the ideas, but we have to remember that context will always be king. And we have to take remarks contextually. And I would encourage that you listen to the entire podcast, as well as the speech that I gave to the War College students, which was pretty good.
지도를 거꾸로 돌려보며 고정관념에서 벗어나 한반도가 처한 상황과 대한민국의 실력을 제대로 바라봐야 한다는 교훈인데요. 결국 자기 몫을 스스로 지켜내는 강한 나라만이 세계 무대에서 동등한 대접을 받으며 동맹을 주도할 수 있다는 확실한 이치입니다.
Of the world, and we can't just say, "Oh, we've been friends for a long time, so let's work together." It's we've been friends for a long time, so you better have the same capabilities we do, because if we don't, our alliance is meaningless. And that's the kind of realism President Trump has asked me to inject into all relations.
오늘 영상을 보며 시청자 여러분들은 어떤 생각이 드셨나요? 더 이상 미국이 일방적으로 우방국의 안보를 지켜주고 돌봐주던 시절은 완전히 끝났습니다. 오직 스스로를 지킬 진짜 힘을 갖춘 나라만이 대등한 친구로 대접받는 실용적인 안보 시대가 시작된 건데요. 하지만 이 냉혹한 변화는 우리 대한민국에게 오히려 새로운 기회가 되었습니다. 남에게 기대지 않고 스스로 막중한 예산 부담을 감수하며 강력한 자주 국방력을 구축했기에 마침내 미국으로부터 엄청난 실익을 얻어내는 바탕이 된 겁니다. 미국 국방부가 공식적으로 약속한 전시 작전권의 조기 환수와 그동안 굳게 닫혀있던 원자력 추진 잠수함의 기술 지원 합의는 결코 거저 주어진 선물이 아닙니다. 우리가 뼈를 깎는 노력으로 그 어떤 나라도 함부로 건드릴 수 없는 막강한 전투력을 증명해냈기에 미국 역시 경의를 표하며 전례 없는 파격적인 혜택으로 화답한 거죠. 스스로 나라를 지킬 실력을 갖추었을 때 외교 무대에서 얼마나 당당하게 원하는 것을 쟁취할 수 있는지 다시 한번 깊이 깨닫게 됩니다. 오늘 영상은 여기까지입니다. 시청해주셔서 감사합니다.